Hi, I'm Rachel from 7 and All, and today I will be coming to you with a sewing tutorial for an envelope pillowcase to make pillows that you can use as sofa pillows, decorative pillows around your house. These are the most recent ones I made. I like to use a bit of a smoother, shinier fabric since these are being used for home decor and not for wear. But today I'm going to be using a different fabric, kind of a really fun pattern of mustaches and top hats. A little bit masculine and quirky, but that will be fun. Now, I make my envelope pillowcases a little bit different from most tutorials that you'll see. Most of the time, these pillowcases are made using 3 pieces of fabric. When I went in to make pillowcases, I wanted to make pillowcases that would last as long as possible. So in my experience of sewing, the fewer raw edges you have, the longer your item will end up lasting. So this tutorial is one that uses only 1 piece of fabric and all raw edges are enclosed by using a French seam technique. So I'm excited to show you how I make my envelope pillowcases. And the first thing that we need to know is the measurement ratios. You can make these for many different sizes of square pillows. This pillow form that I'm using today is a 16-inch pillow form. So you're going to start by cutting your piece of fabric using, for the width, it's going to be exactly the same width as your pillow. Since my pillow form is 16 inches, my width is going to be 16 inches. Then for the length, you do double of 16 inches plus 7 inches. So today, that will be 32 plus 7, so that will be 39 inches in the length. So next I will be cutting the fabric at 16 inches by 39 inches to make my 1-piece pillowcase. Alright, so I've measured my fabric and I've folded over the piece that I'm going to cut in order to be able to cut a very straight line along the 39-inch side. And so we're now cutting out the fabric as straight as possible. You can use a cutting wheel if you prefer, but for long straight lines, I just prefer fabric scissors. Alright, now I've got the fabric cut out, and you should end up with one very long piece of fabric that you're going to use to make your pillowcase. Now what I start with is I start by hemming the short edges to create the edges that will be here to create your envelope pillow. So we're going to start by making these. Now to do this, you're going to fold over your edge to the inside about ½ inch and then fold it over again about another ½ inch. Now, depending on the fabric you're using, you may want to press your hems, and actually that's the correct way to do it. But most of the time, if I'm making a quick pillowcase, I don't want to drag my iron and my ironing board out. And if it's an easy enough fabric to work with, I'll just kind of use the heat from my hands to press it out in a straight line. And you can't really tell the difference. If you're making professional pillowcases, get the iron out. So we're going to make the hems now. So I folded the fabric in once. And I'm going to fold it in again to enclose the raw edge. Once I've got that and it looks straight, and I've done my unprofessional pressing with the hand, then I'm going to pin it in place. It's always easiest to insert your pins horizontal to the direction that you'll be sewing in so that you can remove them very easily as you sew. So I've got this side pinned, and now I'll do the other, then we will quickly sew the seams, sew these hems together. Right, now we will begin sewing the hems. And of course we do a couple stitches forward, reverse stitch a couple stitches, and continue. Okay, now we have sewn the hems on the 2 sides of the pillowcase, and this where it gets just a little bit tricky. because we're going to sew our seams together in a way that we have no raw edges left. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to fold the pillowcase together, right side out. And here is where you have to pay attention, because you have to make sure that the square you're ending up with is 16 inches on this side. So it's slightly under 16 inches the way I initially folded it. So I'll pull it out just a bit, widen it, make sure we end up with an exactly 16-inch square pillowcase. That looks good. Make sure it's all folded straight. And this is going to be the outside of our pillowcase. But we are going to put our first seam down the outside. And we're going to do a very narrow seam so that we are able to tuck it in later to create a French seam with enclosed raw edges. So we've got this put together, and we're going to do a narrow seam down the raw edges to attach them here. I recommend what we usually call a scant 1/4 inch seam. For now, we're going to do that on both sides. So now we have our square pillowcase sewn together on the two sides, but this is not how we're going to end our pillowcase with raw edges hanging out. We're going to turn the pillowcase to the inside now, and we're going to sew down the two side seams again so that we can enclose the raw edges in a narrow seam. And this technique is, I believe, called French seams, where the raw edges are completely enclosed, and it really makes for a nice finished product that is more long-lasting through the wash. And that's why I like to take the extra step. This entire pillow is achieved with only 6 lines of sewing, so it's a very fast project that leaves a very nice finished product. Now that the pillowcase is turned all inside out, I'm going to feed it into my machine and sew a line of stitching along the two already stitched edges, and once the two sides are done, we will be finished. You just want to make sure that you have a wide enough gap this time to make sure that all of the raw edges and any loose strings will be completely enclosed by your second line of stitching. Now, if you've done this according to my instructions, the pillowcase that you sewed will end up being slightly smaller in inches than your pillowcase form, or than your pillow form. If you, as I did, used a 16-inch pillow form and then cut out 16 inches of fabric, your seam allowance does take up a little bit of space. But I really like this, and this is why I don't like to cut my pillowcases fabric bigger than the pillow that I'm using, because when your pillowcase is slightly smaller than your pillow form, you end up with a really tightly fitted pillowcase, and your pillow won't be sloppy and moving around inside of it. And that's the effect that I really like in my pillows. Now that all the stitching is done, I'm just about done with my pillowcase. I just need to trim any strings that are hanging off and turn the pillowcase right side out. Making sure to press out the corners so that we get nice pointy corners. I've got some strings here. So one of the reasons I really like to do this pillowcase using just one piece of fabric is, for one thing, cutting is not my favorite part of sewing, and it does reduce the cutting time, but also it just helps us end up with a more long-lasting product. Pillows take a lot of wear and tear, and you might spill something on them or sleep on them too much, and you gotta wash your pillowcases. You don't want something that's gonna fall apart in the wash, and the fewer raw edges you have and the fewer pieces of fabric you're using, you'll end up with something that's gonna last a lot longer. I love to make these pillowcases to give as gifts that are not expensive and not very time consuming, but end up being something really cute and really usable for around the home, for accent pillows. And look at that adorable mustache pillow. When I'm not making it in a video, I can make these whole pillow from start to finish in less than 10 minutes. So it's a super fast, fun project, great way to get out the sewing machine that hasn't been getting enough use lately. And you make something and then you're done. Satisfy that creative urge. Thank you. If you've enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel, 7 in All, and there'll be more awesome videos to come.